Welcome to Futures in the Making. In this episode of Futures in the Making, we dived into the world of startup accelerators, how they really work, what founders get wrong, and why they still matter in 2025. My guest is Peach Nashed, Senior Program Manager at Alchemist X, the corporate service division of the legendary Alchemist Accelerator. Peach bridged global startup ecosystems, helping founders from around the world enter the US market, connect with mentors, and scale innovation across borders. So, hello, Peach. It's nice to have you here today.
Great to be here.
So, if you ever wonder how to get into Accelerator or how to work in one, this episode is for you. So, let's get started. For those new to the startup world, how do accelerators actually work behind the scenes?
Yeah. I think as most people know, accelerators are kind of like an investor in an early stage startup. We will make an investment to company, take a little bit of equity, but where we differ is really the follow through, right? How we support the startups after that investment through their sales, fundraising, business operations, and really getting to their first customer.
Thank you. And what's the difference between an accelerator and an incubator? And how should a founder choose between them?
Yeah. Incubators are typically for really early ideas. So this is somebody who has an idea that they're interested in building out into a company. And typically they don't provide funding, though that can happen. And they're usually longer engagements or longer support, right? When you think about an accelerator, it's really a much shorter and investment focused initiative, right? So they're typically pre-seed or seed companies that would join an accelerator, and they really just help the company grow faster, right? The goal is to accelerate the company, the business, establish their first customer, and these programs are typically shorter, a little bit more time bound. The classic, YC is a couple of months. At Alchemist, we are a B2B accelerator. So we work with startups that are monetizing through enterprise.
Mhm.
And just because it takes a little bit longer to sell to an enterprise customer, our program is a little bit longer. So our program is 6 months, with a big portion of the program being support in selling to enterprise. And then a couple months at the end, supporting them as they prepare and start their fundraising process.
And what usually startups can do during this 6 month in your accelerator?
Yeah, startups at Alchemist have access to quite a lot of resources, right? So first and foremost, the network, right? We have thousands and thousands of mentors, investors, and like people who just want to be involved in the startup ecosystem who are available to our startups for mentorship purposes, right? It could be one-off mentorship, like getting somebody's take based on their expertise, or a longer, more like an advisor relationship. So first, they get access to the network, right? Second is the programming. So we'll have weekly, programs, talks where we bring in experts to kind of talk about certain topics that would just, help them in their sales process. This is anything from establishing your customer advisory board to how to deal with negotiations and getting to a close. Um, and so they get access to that weekly kind of workshop that we give startups. Of course, like there's always perks that come with joining an accelerator, right? Discounts to certain platforms and subscriptions, to events that are happening in the Silicon Valley and just in the larger tech space. And so there's quite a lot of things that they could take advantage of. Of course, demo day is the biggest one. Why I hear a lot of people joining accelerators. Right at the end of sales, we move into fundraising. And so we'll put on a big event, demo day, where our founders can pitch in front of a room full of investors, virtually or in person, and kind of kick off their fundraising process.
I've heard about the brutal process of selection of startups to YC. And how does Alchemist X select startup for its programs? What makes a founder or team stand out?
This is a good question. I want to also preface it by saying there is no one formula, right?
Mm.
I've seen founders come in all different from different backgrounds, from different places, from different, educations as well. But really, first and foremost, as we look at the founder, right? One, do they have expertise in this space to really win, right? Do they have the background and the knowledge of the problem that they're solving to intimately know what solution they should build? And are they an expert in this space, right? No matter how niche the problem or solution might be. So, first is the founder. Second is the team, right? Of course, you might not have all of the skills to go sell your company and build it at the same time. So do you have the the bench of people behind you that can get you to that measure of success, right? And then finally is just problem solution, right? Is the problem that you're tackling a big enough market where this makes feasible sense to be a venture scalable business? And is your solution, you know, proprietary or unique or, have enough differentiation where, the Apples and Amazons of the world can't just spin this up and that you have really a competitive advantage in this space?
Are accelerators still worth in 2025? I'm sorry for this provocative question. Or are we seeing a shift toward other models like venture studios, for example?
Yeah, this is a good question because I feel like there's a lot of debate about this, right? I hear that, like founders who can't raise join accelerators, or like you join an accelerator for the demo day. And like, I don't believe that that's all true. I think that you really do just have to look at what you need,
Mhm.
right? Like I said, there's a lot of resources that come with Alchemist, right? There's a lot of people in the space that you have access to that you might not otherwise have if you didn't have the Alchemist name behind you. So I would really say, like, well, what is it that you need, right? Do you just need investment, right? Accelerators don't give the biggest checks, right? So if you need money and investment, and that's the primary thing, maybe the accelerator isn't the best means to that, right? If you need access to network support, like, you just have all these questions that you don't know how to get your foot into the door into Silicon Valley. Accelerator is a really great way
Mhm.
to do that, right? You're giving up a lot of equity. It's the first time you're giving up a portion of your company, but you're really getting a very involved advisor and team behind you. And so, if you can utilize that to your advantage, I think it is still absolutely very necessary and useful. But
Mhm.
if you're joining for the spot on stage at demo day, if you're joining for just that check size, it might not be the right avenue for you. So I really would just say, like, what's your opportunity cost? Like your time, your equity, and is this really the best decision for you?
And by the way, I wonder what percent of startups pass through this selection, in your accelerator?
Yeah. Of course it varies from class to class, but I would say on average it's about 10%.
And is it usual for founders to try to re-enter the same process again and again?
Definitely, definitely. I've seen founders apply, not get in. A couple cycles later, they do get in, right? I also see founders that were in the program before with a previous company go through it again with their new company. And that's
Mm.
something that is awesome because, you learn a lot from your first time around. And I think that, especially in the US, we see that as like a sign of credibility. Even if, that first venture wasn't a success, you still went through the grind and the holes of just that founder experience that we do love to see repeat founders and founders coming back going through the accelerator. I've even seen some of our mentors and like longtime coaches join as a founder. And that is also a fun thing to see the like roles kind of being switched within our network.
Oh, that's really fun when your teacher starts to do something with their own hands, yeah, and probably very beneficial for everyone else. What does a successful accelerator startup partnership look like from your perspective?
Yeah, from my perspective as a program manager, I think that what the best startup to accelerator partnership looks like is just somebody who's very involved in the accelerator, right? Um, I am in my role, I'm very much a connector across
Mhm.
the startups that we service to our network. And so the better that I know you, the better that I know what you're working on, what you're doing, what you're like the things that you're facing, the better I can be to help you find people to support you in that, whether that's a mentor, whether that's a resource, to learn something. The more that I know, the better I can serve them, right? I've had startups in the program that like I never even met the founder or I never spoken on to them one on one. And it just is a much more distant relationship. And,
Mhm.
at that point, they're just kind of going through the motions. But when I have founders that can talk to me, candidly, share what's going
Mhm.
on, I'm much more able to point them in the right direction of where I think that they can get help.
Need tech talent fast? At Key People, we connect companies in the US and Europe with elite tech experts from Latin America and the EU, top tier skills and optimal costs. 91% success rate. Women own, HR smart, tech savvy. Click the info box to learn how we can hire your next tech star. Other mm, a lot of founders that don't reach you. They don't have an initiative in additional information or help or support. Do they exist?
Yes, of course. And I mean, like, there's founders of all shapes and sizes, right? There's founders that, and like, I acknowledge this too. It's like there's a thousand things for you to do as a founder and within your company,
Mm,
outside of your personal life, outside of it, anything fun you want to do on the weekend. And so a lot of the times it's like these founders are just balancing a lot that's on their plate. And that is totally understandable. Um, but every time I can, connect with a founder or learn about what they're working on deeper, it's just, I think it's better for everyone. And that's not to say that they don't talk to, right, like the managing director of Alchemist more, or, they're close with other people. But as it trickles down to like some of the people that are providing the support, putting together the programs and, helping founders in whichever area they need, the more that we get, the more helpful we can be.
got it. Thank you. And you've worked with founders from around the world. How do cultural differences influence collaborations and success?
Yeah. This is a good one because now in my job I work primarily with international founders. And it's always a hard time for them coming and trying to break into not just the US, but specifically this crazy Silicon Valley culture. Um, I think the sooner that they can integrate into the Silicon Valley, whether moving to the Silicon Valley or spending a considerable amount of time in the Silicon Valley, the better, right? It's really hard to break into, as I'm sure you understand personally as well. And the speed in which it moves is very foreign in other markets, right? Um, Everything moves fast, work hard, break things, pivot, right? And so everything from, how you design your slides to how you network with people in Silicon Valley and even the notion of failure, right? Like I think in the Silicon Valley and in maybe more in the US, like, yes, failure is not a fun thing, but it is a sign of you understand that this didn't work and now you're going to try something else.
Mhm.
In other cultures, failure is just like the last option, anything but failure. And so I think that also understanding what failure means in the US and being able to get to that point is a positive thing that I think needs is just only comes with cultural learnings of Silicon Valley.
Wow. So, for example, if you have a founder from Asia or from post-Soviet Union country where I'm from, where failure is really the last option, so you shouldn't fail in anyhow in any way. Maybe it's even some kind of a problem for you to help people with pivot, for example, faster, as long as you don't accept that it's already a failure and you're trying to, to make this dead project alive, the longer it will take you to to do something else. Yeah, and that's interesting. I haven't thought about this ever. I was thinking about cultural differences in networking, in communication. Yeah, it's definitely a thing. Yeah, it comes with some traction, with some with several months, I guess, or even years. But your approach to failure, never thought about it. Yeah, actually, that's yeah, and I agree. Everything is so fast here. Uh, People work a lot. People do a lot of things at the same moment. Yeah, at once. So it's a bit crazy when you look at this from the side. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it is as easy as a pivot, right? We need to switch directions. But sometimes it is as hard as like, I need to shut this company down. Like it's not
Mm,
working. And, you know, I think coming back to the first question, it's like, well, what do you invest in? It's like it's the founder, right? I've seen many founders get into Alchemist because of the founder. And, like this idea, we don't think is scalable. We don't think that this is going to be the one to win the market, but we can coach the founder and find a new problem for them because they have what it takes to get there. And
mm.
it's really like it's a real focus on the individual and their ability to accept failure, accept change, pivot, move, and keep moving forward. Where, like you said, a lot of times that can be very uncomfortable in some other cultures.
If a founder is outside Silicon Valley, what's the best way to approach or get noticed by an accelerator?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious, like just have some kind of traction, some kind of revenue, of course, in your own geography. But that can even look like, having just traction and credibility in your space, whether that's knowledge on how to reach your customers, whether they're paying right now or not. That's a really important thing, right? Can I reach my ideal customer profile? And do I know how to sell to them or get their attention and talk to them in a language that they understand? And do they have interest, right? And that I think is also traction. Like even an LOI or an intent to do business with you is a sign of traction, is a sign of these people have this pain and they see my solution as viable. So I would say traction in some form and ability to reach customers. And of course, like I said at the beginning, a strong team. Do you have the team that can provide a solution to this population that will solve their need?
And what should founders absolutely have ready before applying? And what are the biggest red flags?
Yes. I think, specific to applying, I've been in a lot of um, interviews where the presentation looks really nice. And as soon as questions start being asked, it becomes clear that maybe some of these metrics or some of these claims are not fully true,
Mm,
right? So I think the biggest thing is like, hey, you might be interviewing with somebody who doesn't know your space, who doesn't know anything about quantum computing or anything about clean tech, biochart, whatever it is that you're working on. But the goal really is for you to come into that room and teach those people something that they don't know, right? You need to be able to vocalize what you're doing and what you're working on in a way that everybody can understand, right?
mhm,
And as people ask more and more questions, we want to see that you are the expert in your space.
mhm,
And the way that you answer those questions, the way that you educate us that what you're doing is $100 million company, that is really what's going to stick, right? Your credibility in the space, how you defend your position, your claims, and really how you are the expert in your space.
mm. So the main red flags is there is some kind of a fake it till you make it data, uh, and if you can't explain something like for like 10 years old child, yeah, for everyone to understand. Yeah. And by the way, I've noticed that recently, I see personally this shift. When I go to some events in San Francisco, and I understand there's so many startups right now that are working in so deep tech areas that I don't even understand what they are doing. So I'm trying to understand. I understand that it's something like connected to AI, infrastructure, efficiency, and so on, but I just have no idea for real what they're doing. Previously, products they were more simple. You can even in B2B, you understand, oh, it works with the, like marketing, with like customer relations, or I don't know, with the documents and so on. But now it's getting serious.
Do you know how many times I have to put a company description into ChatGPT and say, explain this to me like I'm 15 years old, right? And some of that is just storytelling of like, how do you take this very complex problem that you're solving and distill it down in a way that you can give a 1 minute pitch and you can explain the pain for this group and how your solution is going to change that. I don't care all of the little how it happens in the background, all of the glitz and glam behind your tech, like that's not important. And there will be a time when that comes, right? And when you can dive into that. But you really do have to get your story right. And who you're telling that to, when you're telling that, it might change a little bit. But that 1 minute pitch for US founder, for an international founder, that is really the first thing that you have to get down.
Got it. Even if you're a very smarty person, yeah. So and you have a very complex product, yeah. Please, please do this. Um, so let's try to look behind the curtain. So, what skills or traits make someone a strong candidate to work inside an accelerator like you?
Yeah. It's a very odd place to work. You're kind of on the side of an investor where you have skin in the game with startups and you're really dedicated to their growth and success. But behind the curtain, we do operate like a startup. And so it's a lot of those like, you have to have that hustle and bustle. You have to have that curiosity to put your finger in all of these different things and just learn it and figure it out, right? um, Tools to use, people to know. I do think that the ability to work a network, whether it's your own personal network or, like this accelerators network, is really one of the biggest things that I think we need to be able to do behind the scenes, right? We're really in the business of people, right? Connecting startups to people in our network and knowing when to make those introductions, knowing who to make those introductions to. It's really all about how you can nurture your network and work your network, how you manage your stakeholders, how you manage your community. Is really the name of the game. And even in a remote world, right? We're mostly a remote team, but it's finding ways to be able to do that either behind the screen or knowing when to come out behind the screen and be in person, right? So I would say some of the traits are really knowing how to use your network and just having curiosity to try different things.
And how can professionals build a career in startup accelerators or innovation programs?
Yeah. So personally, I got into this when I was in college. So if you are a young professional or coming into your professional career, um, like in your university, get involved with innovation that's happening there. Typically, there's classes, there's centers that, there's events, things you can join there. But if you're a young professional or just a general professional that wants to get into this, um, events, I think that that's first the easiest and probably most fun way to get involved, right? Who are the people in this space and how can you network with them, right? Stay close to innovation, attend demo days, attend showcases, places where you can have your ear on to the ground on what technology is, you know, being created across the
Mhm.
globe, right? Like I said, we're in the business of people. So like just get to know that, try to get your foot in the door and get to know people in this space. Ask questions, right? Um, I love talking about what I do. I love my job and it's a crazy place to work. No one understands it. And so anybody who asks me who wants to hop on a call or just learn more about it, I'm always happy to chat with them. So having that genuine interest, but also, you know, working that network, going and approaching somebody, which could be really uncomfortable or difficult, um, is, I think, just the best way to get your foot in the door with accelerators or
Mm.
incubators.
It's almost impossible to get into Accelerator as a candidate from, I don't know, Indeed or Glassdoor, as I understand it.
I've never seen us hire from those sites.
Really?
It really is
Never.
the people you know. No, never.
So only through some university university programs, yeah. So it's only through some like mentorship programs, or how did you get into this
Yeah.
field?
I got into this because I was involved at the innovation, the Center of Technology and Entrepreneurship at my university,
Uh-huh.
which I got introduced to the individuals at Alchemist. And so, it is an odd space to be in, right? It's a very weird mix of startup, some venture, and somewhere in between that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, people that also come from that background, people that are primed into what this is like, it's a pretty small circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, just being in that space, like talking to people like we're on now, right? Like just getting your foot in the door. Also talking to people who know people there, because this is the name of the game, right? Who you know, what you know. This is Silicon Valley. This is probably the hardest part, I think, also for international founders to deal with. Is like, how do you network and how do you naturally kind of get into the circles that you want to be in? Um, I think that's also just a generally good skill for everyone to have, right? How to network and how to
Yes,
get
yes.
where
And
you.
the market has changed drastically in tech, and I will work in a tech recruiting field. And I realize when I talk to people and they tell me that, oh, I made like several hundred applications and only had one call with the recruiter. It seems like the game's changed for in this
Yeah.
field to this more proactive networking approach that you always need to um, in some way work on your next on your next opportunity. Yeah, so it's not enough just to work hard on your current job. You always need to look around, and you always need to like somehow highlight yourself and approach people that could help you and so on. So that's crazy how it's getting more startup-ish even in the corporate world right now. If you're
Yeah.
aiming to have a good salary, a good position and so on. So yeah, but it is. And for me it's wow. To be honest, because I had an experience as an HR director, and I've never worked with any company that recruit their people only from their circle, only from some kind of a circle. Yeah. So but it's understandable because you already get through some kind of a filter. Yeah. So if you're getting through some kind of a referral, it means you're already have this initiative. You already like probably a proactive person. From the very young age, you understand how the market works. Yeah. So it's like it's great. You don't need to teach this person. It's this person learn themselves. So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. It is kind of the culture of, I mean, we
Entrepreneurship. Yeah.
work like a startup, right? Where it's like, so many times founders have to do this. And, you're saying, how can people get an innovation? All of these things, having your ear to the ground, innovation, going to events, like these are things that we still have to do while we're in the organization, right? Because there's so much that happens at such a rapid speed now that, you know, being out of it for a period of time, you really do lose touch. It is quite fascinating how fast things move and work now. And, just like founders need to find their champion, that will help them close the deal within an organization, whatever. You kind of have to do that personally in our careers and, the network that you build, they're your champions, and you never know what your next opportunity might come from, or maybe you give them an opportunity as well. But the more you can connect with people, I think the more it just pays out in the long run.
What's the one thing about your job that people outside the ecosystem rarely understand?
Everything. No, I joke about this because the amount of times I have to explain to my mom what I do and then hearing her explain it back is just quite hilarious. But is it, like I said, it's a very odd mix of being in the middle of a startup and being an investor and kind of, just everything in between. But it is really quite fun to educate people in this space. So I think honestly, in my job personally, it is a lot more people coordination than you would ever imagine, right? Internally within our team and then with our founders, but also our stakeholders and who we're serving at a higher level. And now with the notion of AI and everything, people are scared for their jobs. And I can say, I don't think AI can ever take over my job. Like it's just too much, too many wrangling of cats where it takes a lot of attention to detail. It takes a lot of personal touch in reaching out and following up and even in a remote world, like making it feel personal, even when we're only talking via screen. Having a connection with somebody, even if you've never even been in the same time zone with them before, like it's those little things I think do go a long way in making at least my job as a program manager just more fun, I think, for everyone around.
So you think that AI would quit your job, not replace
I, I would love to see AI do what I do. And, you know, more recently now, too, it's like every little thing I do, I utilize AI in some way, right? Sometimes I feel like an orchestrator of all of these things I'm trying to do and all the little agents that I have working on every little piece and bringing it all together for one large symphony of just like, look at this program, look at the work that we've done, look at the results that not just we have, but look at the results that the founders have that they've been able to accomplish over these last few months. And even looking back to 2 years ago, like the sheer amount more that we can accomplish, the amount more that we can track and we can put metrics behind because we have the use of these tools is so incredible. I was working on just like a final report covering the program and everything we accomplished. And 2 years ago, this would have taken me and a colleague a couple of weeks to put together. And it took me about 10 hours to put together a couple months ago, just using all of these tools. And it's inspiring, like what AI can do. Scary at times as well, of course, but
Yeah, it would be great that if you could do this faster, like much faster, like 2 weeks faster, and just not to work all these 2 weeks, just
yeah.
just to go to Hawaii. But no, you're doing much more things that you could have done previously, yeah. But there is still no vacation, yeah. So yeah, so. I have a final question before we will jump into our short questionnaire. How do you see the future of accelerators evolving globally in the next 5 years?
This is a really interesting question. I even think back to 5 years ago when I started at Alchemist to today. It has changed a lot. But I really think that, going forward, I think that there'll be stronger collaborations across borders, stronger bridges, right? And, kind of what I think is that we'll see certain geographies have the right to play, right? I work a lot with Japanese founders, and like I see Japan having just a way larger right to play within, say, the manufacturing space, right? And so I want to see like stronger collaboration across borders between the US, between Asia, between Europe, all these places where innovation just grows even more exponentially because, we're all domains and we all have dominance in certain areas,
Mhm.
and we have more ability to lean on each other to collaborate. I think COVID also, like in a remote world, that made the world feel a lot smaller too, right? And so I just kind of hope to see that continues, and a continued expansion of Silicon Valley outside of just the San Francisco Bay Area and into other countries, and um, seeing more and more of these entrepreneurial hubs pop up and deeper collaboration across all of them.
I hope. I hope. It seems like the current political current isn't that optimistic, but things change. Yeah, and yeah, I hope so too. I have four short questions. The first, what's the biggest myth about startup accelerators you want to debunk?
There are a few, but I would say that it's all about the demo day. And as soon as you hit the demo day, you're going to fundraise and you're going to be set. I don't think that that's true. I think that demo day is a drop in the bucket. It will kickstart you. But one, there's way more to gain outside of just demo day by joining an accelerator. And there's still a lot of work after taking that stage.
In one sentence, what makes a founder stand out to you instantly?
What makes a founder stand out to me instantly is their ability to communicate their passion and completely understand that the problem that they're solving, even if it's as lackluster as some enterprise SaaS solution. And no shade when I say that. I want to understand and learn something from you right off of the bat.
What's the most underrated skill for someone who wants to work in accelerators or venture programs?
Curiosity and the ability to work in ambiguity and uncertainty.
If you could change one thing about how startups and accelerators collaborate today, what would it be?
I think this is more of a tip for startups as they start collaborating with accelerators. Be as open and transparent as you can be. The more you are, the better the collaboration. And if you don't feel like you can be transparent and open with them, don't take their money. Don't join.
Thank you so much. It was a really interesting talk. I could talk about this topic for ages probably, but we have like limited time. So thank you so much for joining.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, and thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Please let me know what you think about today's episode and give it a like or dislike. Thank you.